Well, I don't know about you, but I am excited this morning. I'm excited not because tomorrow is a national holiday and most of us, including me, get the day off. Nor am I excited that despite this 3-day weekend that marks the end of summer, that so many of you have decided to come to worship this morning. Although I'm sure that God is very pleased with your decision. Nor does my excitement spring from the fact that today is the 19th anniversary of my 29th birthday. I'll let you figure that one out for yourselves. Although it is a very, very beautiful day, and I am thankful to be alive and healthy and doing what I love. No, I'm excited today because we as a church are going to be embarking on a 5-week sermon series. The sermon series is based on findings by Dan Kimball from interviews he conducted 5 years ago about members of the emerging generations. Read people in their 20s and 30s. It's about perceptions that this group has about the Church of Jesus Christ in the 21st century. The findings are a wake-up call because the reality is that younger adults, if they think about church at all, and as many as 30% of young Americans don't claim any religious affiliation, they don't think very much about the church. So each week, beginning today, we're going to be looking at the top 5 perceptions of the church in the 21st century. And we will examine why, at our best, maybe we aren't really that thing, but something else altogether. So today I'm excited for us to begin by considering the perception that the church is nothing but organized religion, an uncaring, unfeeling, bureaucratic institution that is concerned a whole lot more about its own survival than with connecting people with Jesus Christ and serving Jesus Christ in the world. I'm not going to detail for you all the reasons why young adults, and maybe even some of you, think that the church has become an institution and not a way of life. But I do want us to think about this one thing. It's easy to understand why people get so confused about the church as an institution versus church's way of life. Think about what someone probably said at your house today. They probably said, "I'm going to church." Or we talk about church as if we were going to Friendly Center. We think about the church as a place that we visit and leave after roughly an hour, rather than a reality that we live each and every hour of each and every day. But that was never the fundamental understanding of the church. The early Christians didn't talk about going to church. They talked about being the church. That's what the New Testament reading from the book of Acts says. They were continually devoting themselves to the apostles' teachings and fellowship and breaking of bread and prayers. That's to say, the early church didn't go to church. They lived in continual devotion to Jesus and in love for each other and service to the world around them. So instead of being a weekly snack to boost their spiritual energy, fellowship with believers was an intravenous flow of spiritual life. Well, Luke, the writer of the book of Acts, mentions 4 characteristics of the church that indicate the church from the very beginning was never to be a bureaucracy that we create or a building that we use, but rather a relationship that we live. The first characteristic of the church is that it is to be a learning church. Luke says that Christ's followers were devoted to the apostles' teachings. They made loving God with their minds a real priority. They sat at the apostles' feet. They were hungry for instruction. They didn't just settle for experiencing God, getting their emotions all whipped up and feeling the holy tinglies. They wanted to know more about God. They wanted to know God more. They wanted to know how to be in God's ways. They realized that there are many choices in life as Christ followers each and every day. You and I constantly choose for God and God's way, or we choose against God and against God's way. God is constantly putting those he loves to the test. Moses and Abraham and Jesus himself were all put to a test. And if you and I are to stand a chance of making a passing grade, then we're going to have to hit the book, the Bible, and study and learn. Starmount doesn't offer small groups and Sunday school and weekday faith formation programs like Wonderful Wednesdays because we're an institution, something that you visit, something that tries to lure you in. We do it because church is a verb. Church is a lifestyle. It's made up of people facing faithful and unfaithful choices, and we can't distinguish one from the other if we're not learning. The next thing we see about the church is that it's to be a loving church. Luke says that believers were devoted to fellowship. That word has become way overused in the Christian circles. We use it so much that we hardly remember what it means. The original Greek word for fellowship was koinonia, which means to hold things in common. As Christ followers, there are things that we share in. 1 John 1:3 says, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. You see, the most precious thing that you and I share in together is our connection with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. When we share together in God, all other differences between us ought to melt away. That's why the church was the first movement in history to bring together Jews and non-Jews, to bring together men and women, to bring together slaves and free persons. In the same way, today's church ought to include rich and poor, white collar, blue collar, healthy and unhealthy, young and old, black and white, and everyone else. Church ought to look a lot like the Department of Motor Vehicles.